Hi there, I'm Wayne Myers. We're working on day 5. I want to congratulate you for being here on day 5. This is continue the process of going from epilepsy hell to epilepsy well and how you can take back your control from epilepsy hell, because it's one hell of a journey and you can definitely feel like you're trapped in places that leave you feeling crazy, feeling mad, angry, depressed, feeling resentful, bitter, remorse, grief from all the things that you've lost and all the things that you want to be able to accomplish. I mean, these emotions just come up all the time. They're part of being a human being. And the problem is when we let our emotions rule who we are and what's going on. And we can't let our emotions, just like we can't let our thoughts go wild and drive us crazy. We can't let our emotions drive us crazy either. But it's really easy. It's really easy to get caught up in emotions. And oftentimes you remember experiences and how they make you feel. And this is how we create memories. And it's why it's more important to be able to retell ourselves the story of what's going on to decide whether the story we're telling ourselves is actually empowering us or taking our power away. So this is why we've been talking about so far, day 1, day 2, we're talking about mindset, how to change your mind, how to think differently about what the epilepsy hell is going on, what you want with yourself, your life, and your purpose to be able to do more and to be more. And it starts with, where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself a year from now? Where do you see yourself 3 years from now, 5 years from now? What kind of life do you want? Do you want to still be struggling with the same stuff? I'm sure you don't. I mean, epilepsy sucks. Yes, right? Epilepsy sucks. We can all agree, but it doesn't have to be the end of your joy. It doesn't have to steal all your hopes and your dreams and leave you emotionally wrecked. I mean, it will, because, when your brain goes crazy and it stirs up all these things and we're out of control and feeling out of control and we're lost for control. Oftentimes, we forget what our passion is. We forget what our purpose is. We forget the love of ourselves and the meaning that it has to be able to love yourself no matter what. It's unconditional love is the best thing you could do for yourself. And oftentimes you find yourself in a relationship, even with other people. And, especially you'll find this in yourself, like it's really easy to go from being happy and loving to being angry and resentful, or angry and unloving, hateful. We say hateful things to ourselves, we say hateful things to other people. And this is something that we need to work on for ourselves. Nobody can fix the way that you feel except yourself. You have to understand that it's just a stress marker. There's good emotions and they're stressful. Like, I mean, if you get happy and excited, it still has this excitement. People, your heart rate can get up, your blood pressure can go up. I mean, different things can happen in the whole process of good as well as bad emotions. So it's about maintaining balance, on this wave that we talk about. Life is a wave. What goes up must come down. What comes down must go up. It's just the way of nature. So, we're going to talk about a few processes a little bit later. I want to talk about the cycle of emotions through the traditional Ancient medicine, the Chinese wheel of generation sequence. But right now, we're going to talk about a few things, like what is it costing you if you don't do something about your mental, your physical, and your emotional health? What's life taking away from you? It's, oftentimes we link change as being painful, or doing something different is painful because it's unfamiliar, and we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of looking stupid, feeling stupid. We're afraid of the consequences of not getting it right. Because, what if we give ourselves a seizure? What if we, end up missing work or missing play, or our relationships fall apart, and then we just start getting fearful and hopeless. And this is the pain that we start finding ourselves in, and it stirs up lots of emotions. And we need to make sure that you find not changing is way more painful, way more fearful of the life staying the same than it does with you trying to find a way to take back your control of your mind, your body, and your emotions. It's all about healthy triad, mind, body, spirit. So, I mean, if you feel it in your soul that you're suffering, you're going to believe that you're suffering. You're going to feel like you're suffering. But if you feel in your soul that you have hope, you have opportunities, that there can be happiness and joy in your life, then you're going to be able to manifest this in your life. Because where the mind goes, action follows. Where action goes, results occur. And these results give us either you feel empowered from your results or you feel broken down and miserable. So you got to understand that we all have to make bad decisions in order to learn how to make good decisions, because it all comes from life experiences. And the more life experiences you have, the more times you're going to find that you've made some bad choices or some choices that did not quite go the way you expected. And having an expectation for an outcome and not reaching it in this time frame that we set for ourselves can also lead to a lot of resentment and remorse. So you want to make sure that you're being driven by purpose, you're being driven by focus, you're taking actions to do this, and you are loving the experience as much as you can. You know, in the process of saying, I am becoming the best version of myself. Every day in every way, I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day in every way, I'm getting happier and happier. Every day in every way, I'm becoming the person that I can love again. So these are some Tony Robbins mantras that I've heard several times, and I highly recommend. If you don't have something that you're saying to yourself, you can start off with these three. They're very, very simple. They'll help you change your mindset. They'll help you start feeling good about you and who you are, because it is something you have to be working on regularly, daily. You can't just say, oh, well, I worked out this week. You know, I've got my workout done. My body's going to be totally physically healthy and I'll be happy because, you know, I put in 10 minutes of push-ups. I did 5 minutes of sit-ups, and, you know, I walked back and forth in my room for, you know, another 5 minutes. I mean, that's not really something that's going to give you the success that you are after. You really have to make sure you have a plan that you're following, like we've been talking about, making sure that it's really easy for you to say, all right, when I'm confused, I'm lost, and I'm feeling miserable, what do I do to get back on track, to feel good about myself, my life, and my recovery? So definitely want to start linking more pleasure in the process of growing stronger and becoming the best version of yourself. You don't want to link your all to like, well, if I mess up, it's going to hurt. Because I mean, no, it's if you continue doing the stuff that you're doing, if you continue doing the things that are hurting yourself, that is just going to lead to more emotional problems, anxiety, worry, depression. All these things come up because we aren't sure what to do, or we're not happy with the results yet. We're not sure if we're doing better. Again, this is why I've mentioned before, you want something like journaling, do gratitude journal. You want to say, hey, these are the things that I appreciate for today. It's really good to write 3 things down in the morning, 3 things down at night, like we were talking about with Danny Cohen. So these kind of help put you in that emotional state of moving forward so that you can make better decisions. Because when you're stressed out, when you're afraid, when you're in this panic mode, you are not thinking straight, and you're not going to make the best decisions for yourself, which means you aren't going to take the best actions. And that means that these actions are going to lead to you feeling worse. So this is why it's important. We talk about these are all interconnected. You can't really separate them one from another. They all affect yourself along this journey. So you want to make sure you're linking pleasure to the outcome. This is why you want this future that you see a year from now, where you're doing the things that you want. We're doing more of what you love, you know, because if you can focus on this, you have it written out, you can reflect back on it every day saying, this is why I get up. This is why I'm breathing. This is why I'm trying so hard to learn how to master myself, because it gets tired and frustrated giving your power away and feeling powerless and hopeless in this whole process. When we start off with epilepsy, it's shock and denial. No, why is this happening to me? It's horrible. I mean, that's a lot of shock. For the most part, your brain is in shock. Your body's in shock. I mean, it feels like you've been hit by a car after a seizure. I know it does for me and a lot of the other people I talk to. The body just aches, it hurts, and it just leaves you emotionally drained, you're just tired and upset, and you're like angry, like, why does this keep happening? Why can't I get an easy button and shut this off? And I mean, if you feel this way, I totally understand. And if you don't feel this way, hopefully that means that you've done some work on yourself and some progress. Oftentimes it comes from therapy, from doing some meditation, some personal reflections, and taking responsibility for your own life. So this is a really good state to be at. And this is kind of what you want to be able to do, is just, again, fall in love with yourself, find passion and purpose so that you can say, all right, it might not be awesome right now, but it can be awesome and more awesome. And every day you start taking little steps forward. You know, they say, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. How do you win? How do you run a marathon? It's one step at a time. You don't do it all at once. So you got to make sure that you're taking your time, moving forward a little by little. Just focus on 1, 2, 3 things a day. You don't have to do everything a lot. So, I mean, if you just change 1 degree every day, you can gain strength and abilities that make you feel good. And in 30 days, you've gone 30 degrees towards the path of where you want to go. We talk about often it's ready, aim, fire. And, you know, people don't really understand this because it's actually a military term. People think ready, set, go. And that's very different from ready, aim, fire. But we're going to talk more about ready, fire, aim. So you want to make sure that you're ready, and that means ready your gun, ready your tools, ready your mindset, ready your focus. You know, aim means find your target. You want to target that you are going to be going towards. If you don't know where you're going, you're just going to be going anywhere, and you're at the mercy of whatever else that happens in your life. So fire means you go, you launch whatever it is, you go forward, you go for that target. But if we do it ready, fire, aim, you can start taking action, and then you can start veering more towards what you want. Kind of like when if you know about flying planes. Like, for the most part, you know where they start at, you know where you want to go, but the whole process, flying planes, or, you know, in a boat, if you're sailing, it's the same thing. Like, you're going to be blown off course by the wind or the waves or the currents. And what you're constantly doing is saying, all right, where am I at? And you change your degrees and you head towards your target more. And then, like, you get blown away by the wind or the water or whatever's going on, and you're off course, and you say, all right, I got to steer back to the course. You got to put yourself back to where you're going. So this is why it's important to get ready, you know, aim, ready for where you're going, not ready, set, but like, get yourself in the mindset, get yourself knowing where you're going to go, aim for that, and make adjustments each day that bring you closer and closer to being able to get to, you know, the airport, the landing. So you get the plane lands, they land really good, really great. You know, boats get into the port, you know, they pull up next to the dock, and, you know, everybody gets off or they unload their products or whatever is going on. But for the most part, this is really how life works. You got to know where you're going, and you got to make small adjustments that keep you on track in your life, regardless of the storms that happen in your life. You know, we can't control a lot of these things. We can only control ourselves. You can control your emotions. You can actually learn to be a better version of yourself through processing and accepting that emotions are part of life. They're stress markers. They're not the end all be all of life. I mean, I know I've been depressed many times, been angry many times, I've been in love a bunch of times, and I've been in hate a bunch of times. I've been worried, I've been sad. You know, I just lost a good friend of mine a few days ago, and that leaves some grief. You know, seriously, like, you know, it's okay to feel emotions, but it's not okay to let them determine the outcome of your day. It's up to you to decide that it is more pleasurable to have this outcome that you want than it is to remain in suffering and misery. Because some people, that's all they want. You want to remain in your misery. You want to define yourself as like this, I'm suffering more than everybody else. Some people want to make it a competition, and it really should not be a competition. You shouldn't be competing with anybody or comparing yourself to anybody, because that leads to more misery. It leads to more heartbreak, more heartache, and the whole deal. You want to make sure that you have an outcome, a future that you can be happy and proud about, and then start working towards that. And then as you're learning and growing, you get better and better at being who you are and becoming who you want to be. We talk about life is either working on you or for you. So if it's not working for you yet, then it means it's working on you. It's trying to teach you how to become the best version of yourself. And then in this process, you can go around and help other people, whether it's your friends, your families, your community, bringing your light, your love into everyone else's life. And it's really, really important that you start with you and how you feel about yourself. Because if you are hating yourself, if you're angry with yourself, it's going to be reflected back on the people around you, and they're going to feel and might take it personal. And then this leads to a lot of conflict. So it's also if you're having trouble loving yourself, it makes it hard for other people, makes it hard for you to feel the love of other people, because you can't really accept it because it's not something that you truly understand. So you truly need to work on loving yourself first. Don't put other people before you. Like we were saying yesterday, when you're on the airplane and the oxygen mask drops, you put it on yourself first, and then you help whoever's sitting next to you, your kid, your neighbor, whoever it is that needs your help. You can now help them because you have yourself ready to go. And you might need to teach this. You have kids and they end up having epilepsy. You might need to be able to teach your kids, like, hey, look, this is how you become the next best version of yourself. This is how you live with it. This is how you be an amazing human being that's in charge of yourself, the hero in your own story, which is really what we need to be able to choose our own adventure and get an outcome that we want. So it's up to you to start, and we're going to start with fear. So let's see. You have to ask yourself, what pain keeps you from taking action? And then make sure you're taking these actions. I'm going to erase this little board over here. So I want to cover the generating sequence here for Chinese medicine and traditional herbs of medicine. This is kind of how we deal with these things. So here at the bottom of my screen, I think it's kind of nice. Empathy, but not emotionally prepared. This leads to fight or flight and even PTSD. So what you'll find with some of your caretakers, your friends, your families, the people in your life, that they feel bad for you. They can empathize and sympathize for what you're going through, but they do not have the emotional intelligence. They haven't been prepared or taught what to do. And so they end up freaking out. So when we're dealing with fight or flight, you basically have the 4 F's. 4 F's of fight or flight. F's. You have flight, which is run away. You have fight, which is attack. You have freeze, which is basically, like it says, a deer in the headlights. When the deer freezes, when the headlights, deer in the headlights. So, when a deer gets lights in the eyes, they freeze, they just stop. So oftentimes if you're driving in some rural country areas, you end up hitting some of these deers because they're stuck, frozen in the street or whatever. And this is a natural occurrence that happens to all of us. And the fourth one that most people may or may not be aware of is fawn. This is actually where people pleasing. If you've ever been raised in an abusive, codependent relationship, you can often find that you start trying to go out of your way to be nice, to calm these people down, to do what they want, just so that they will stop causing this fight or flight syndrome. So 4 F's of hypervigilance. This is kind of really what it is. Hypervigilance. So the 4 F's of hypervigilance, 4 F's of fight or flight: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Now this is all coming out of fear. These are fear responses that we have. And, if you have to find the courage to do things that you're afraid of. And if you're not afraid, it's not courage, So you can say, oh, you have so much courage, but it takes being scared and living in fear, or having fear of the outcome and doing it anyways. That's true courage. That is when you have the courage to move forward and do stuff. But if you're dealing with fear, it's going to have a major effect on your brain. Like I said, you're not going to be thinking straight. You have a lot of people in your life, they're not going to be thinking straight either. And they might respond with one of these responses that you're not ready for either, especially when you have a seizure and you're not in your right head yet, because it takes a little bit of time to recover from that too. So you can have people that will literally run away from you. They won't be in your life anymore. And it can lead to all kinds of other emotions if you're not prepared to be alone and to learn how to love yourself and grow into the next version of yourself. Because oftentimes we have to kill off who we used to be or who we are now and become the next best version. Like I hope that you are killing yourself off every day and becoming a new, better version. Like every day you want to be a better version of yourself. So you don't want to run away. And often, you don't want to, you feel sad and lonely when other people are running away. The other response is, again, they're going to fight you. They're going to attack you for having a seizure. They're going to give you crap because they are in hypervigilance. They're in fight or flight. They're in panic mode. They don't know what to do. And other people are just going to stare and watch. And they're going to be sitting on the sidelines. They don't have answers for you. You can't expect everybody to have the answers that you need, especially if you don't have them. If you aren't emotionally prepared, I mean, who else in your life is? So you have to understand that it helps to educate and bring people along the journey and to not blame other people in your life for your problems. So it gets really scary. And, the next emotion tends to come into anger. But, you'll find people that will try to help please you, try to help make things better for you. They'll even go so far as to do everything for you so you can't do anything for yourself. But then you end up being dependent on these people in such a manner that when they're not there, you don't know how to take care of yourself. So it's really important to make sure that even though you're getting help from other people, that you're working on yourself, that you are learning how to do these things yourself. I mentioned a couple of days ago about my sister who had her right arm amputated at the age of 7. My mom didn't want to let her do anything until I mentioned, hey, look, she needs to be able to know how to do this stuff when she grows up. What is she going to do when you're not here for her? So it's the same thing for us. What are you going to do when there's no one else around? Because you can't always expect, if you got a husband or a wife and they go to work, they got to go to work. Boyfriend, girlfriend's got to go to work, go to work. Your kids go to school. Like, this is just part of the normal life. Like, people have responsibilities and they can't make their life revolve around you 24/7. But you can make your life revolve around you 24/7. And you learn to stop living in fear, stop having this response and get better at it. And then one of the easiest ways to do that is take a deep breath. Slow down, because your heart's pounding, your lungs are going faster, you're breathing shallow, but you really just need to. Sometimes you need to just yell or shout, let out these emotions. Just don't yell and shout at the other people. You gotta put a pillow to your mouth and yell into the pillow. These are things that people often do, and they tend to not scare their loved ones and their neighbors and their roommates and stuff that much by being able to do things like this. So you want to address the fact that you're in hypervigilance. You want to find a way to get out of hypervigilance and stop living in fear. So, all right. So the next sequence from fear is anger. We live in a mad world, right? Mad world. So when you're angry, it prevents your body from being able to heal itself properly. You often find that anger leads to hypertension, which is basically high blood pressure. And that gets a lot of people get headaches, migraines, all kinds of stuff just from their their anger and the hypertension that's caused in it. And this also leads to seizures. You have all this anger that you're trying to deal with. It's definitely not going to help you find solutions. Sometimes it can be a motivation factor. Motivate change. Because we're feeling rigid, we're feeling stuck. I mean, if you think about it, in Chinese medicine, we refer to this as the wood category. Fear category is actually water. So from water, trees, you plant, you water your trees. It's the next stage from water to wood. Wood is also wind. Wind's dealing with change. It's things in our lives that change, that kind of go back and forth, that come and go. Epilepsy is very much a wind disorder in Chinese medicine because it comes and goes. It's not a constant thing, and it definitely messes with your head. And man, you can be very mad at yourself. You can be very mad at the other people. Because I mentioned before, the 4 F's. Fight is one of them. You can fight yourself. You can fight other people, you know, and you don't want to keep fueling this anger and hatred because it just gets worse. It leads to, if you're not attacking the other people, you're attacking yourself. You know, you end up with depression. You know, depression is really just anger turned inwards, you know, frustrated with our situations. It's, you know, the next step, you go from being fearful to being mad and angry. So depression is a horrible state to be at. And you can definitely feel this way when you're alone, when you're lonely, when you're forced to deal with who you are. And if you don't have the answers and the solutions to how to have the best life, how to make the day yours, how to be able to get back on track, you know, you're often going to find yourself depressed. You're going to find yourself resentful. You're going to find yourself angry and start rigid and just, it's going to break instead of bend. So you want to make sure you're a lot more flexible. This is why I'm saying you want to focus on 1, 2, 3 things a day that you're trying to improve on. And you got to give yourself the flexibility to be able to learn and grow like the trees do. They grow, you know, first they plant roots, right? A little seed planted, the roots start off, and then after a while, after it sets its roots and gets grounded, like you water it, and then it's going to pop up. Let's change colors here. So after you plant that, it pops up. Bam. You got your trees. You got some leaves coming off. You know, you might have some branches. So for the most part, it's the next step, is you got to understand that, you know, first we start off in darkness. You know, if you've ever known anything about ginseng actually takes 5 years before it ever sprouts. So for 5 years, you don't know if it's going to sprout. You just assume that and hope for the best that watering it, taking care of it naturally, whatever, it's going to pop up. So 5 years, it starts to actually shoot up. So you got to understand that in nature, some things just take time. We talk about riding a bicycle. When you fall down, you get mad at yourself and say, I'm never going to ride this bicycle. And then you might have a tantrum for a second as a kid. But, you know, oftentimes you get back on that bike and you try again, you know, and then when you're done with that, you start getting a little more happy. The better you get at doing what you're doing, the more flexible you are. You start doing tricks on your bike, you start doing jumps, you start doing all kinds of different stuff, going places that you never thought was possible. But you have to grow into that. You have to find a way to plant your roots in the darkness, you know, get your foundation, and then you can sprout up and become the next best version of yourself, and realize that everything in life changes. There's no real constant. You know, the weather changes. You know, we talk about all kinds of stuff as far as the weather. For the most part, we know we've got spring, summer, fall, winter, and these cycles repeat themselves, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the temperatures are going to remain consistent. There's been plenty of times during the winter you have what feels like a summer day in some places, and plenty of times in, you know, the summer that ends up being a little cooler than it normally is. So I know, especially during the transitional stages of spring and fall, it's, you're going back from, is it hot? Is it cold? Is it cold? Is it hot? So it's about transitioning. And sometimes it gets very uncomfortable, especially if you're not prepared. I mean, you go out and you think it's a nice warm day. You live in the desert, you've got some warmer days and then some cooler nights during the spring and summer, and you can wear a jacket or something at night. It's good to dress in layers. That way you can take them off when it gets hotter. These are just things you can do in your own life when you're trying to prepare for dealing with your environment, dealing with yourself, dealing with your emotions, your depression, your frustration. Don't take your frustration out on yourself. Don't take your frustrations out on the people in your life. So movement, doing things is a great way to feel better when you're angry about stuff. I like doing my Tai Chi. I highly recommend some meditation, but sometimes it's really hard to just sit there. So going for a walk is awesome. We talked about this before. So taking action often leads you to working through your emotions. I enjoy singing. Singing is really good, but we'll cover that in here in a little bit. But you want to make sure you're growing. You realize, like I said, there's a little darkness before the dawn. So, you want to grow into the next best version of yourself. Focus that anger, not at yourself, but at the results you want. Focus it on something that is going to be more sustainable, because once your anger burns out, like, you're left depressed and unmotivated. You're left mad at yourself and not knowing what to do, and that's not what we want. You don't want to be dealing with a life where you're frustrated, depressed, giving yourself seizures because you're too tensed up to be able to do anything but be rigid and continue this process. So it's up to you to be able to change your mind, change your actions, and change the way you feel about everything. Not right now. So after anger, after the wood light, we go into fire. So fire is about, we call it, the good side of it is laughter and bitterness. Many of us can find ourselves really bitter about what's going on in our lives. Sometimes you find that laughter comes up at the wrong, inappropriate moment. I don't know if you ever laughed like at the wrong time. It's just kind of a neurological response for some people. Talk about the fire is just kind of uncontrolled, and so you laugh inappropriately. But you can also have too much fun, and having too much fun can also hurt yourself. You can run out of energy. You can overwhelm your heart. I mean, seriously, you're out there getting excited and it can be too much, but it's, it can lead to bitterness, dealing with resentment and stuff, people that aren't in your life, losing the life you used to have. You want to be better, not bitter. Bitter to better. But a lot of that has to do with your laughter. You want to find some passion. If you can laugh at other people, you should be able to laugh at yourself. I mean, seriously, it's only fair. So laugh at your problems. Laugh at like the falling down process. Try to make it fun, enjoyable. It's going to suck until you can figure out how to feel very differently. Make it an experience. The learning yourself, adding fuel to the fire. So we go from wood to fire. Getting passionate about your future, about the life that you want to live. This helps bring you out of feeling bitter and resentful. You don't want to be trapped in these emotions. Again, they'll just keep tearing you down until you do something about them. You got to figure out where at on this cycle, where at on the wheel you are personally at, in order to be able to do these things to improve the quality of your life. Add a breath on that one. So have a quick story. This is actually in my Chinese, when I was in acupuncture school, right inside the book. I just thought this was a really crazy story. So it never really made much sense to me, but I actually started running into this more in my own personal life. So in this book, there's a teacher and he sees his student is super, super excited. And so he goes to his student and he tells his student that his parents are dead. And this is in a time when there's no telephones, there's no iPhone, you can't really check this up. He's literally has to travel 2 weeks to go home to see what's going on with his parents. And he comes back a month later and he says, "Teacher, My parents are fine. Why did you tell me they're dead? And he said, because you were too excited and I was fearful of your life. Um, and if you have epilepsy, you can understand like getting too excited could actually cause a seizure. But I mean, that's a really messed up way to like get somebody's mindset to change real quick. Putting them in fear and worry is not always the way I would handle it. But you often find that people will, have the best of intentions and their methods are not always the nicest thing. So I often say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So understand that some people mean well, but their methods just are a little less than sane, a little less than nice. Kind of, they mean well, they're trying to do well, but again, like it's not gonna. You got to make sure that you are responsible for you, that you're responsible for feeling the way you want. And when you have people that are doing these things to you, you can say, hey, look, I don't want to be treated this way. And if they continue treating that way, you can't blame them. That's who they are. You just can only say, hey, I don't want to deal with these people anymore, and limit your interactions with these people as much as possible. So hopefully you don't have people trying to put you with the best intentions, ruining your moods and your excitements and everything that's going on, because some of them do it out of jealousy, some of them do it out of fear that you're going to change, that they're angry that you're not the way you used to be, that they're also bitter and resentful over the fact that they don't experience you the way that they used to, because we often mean something to people that we're not quite sure. People put meanings on us as well, but this is why you have to worry about how you feel about stuff first, and not be all bitter and resentful and brokenhearted, because you have to love yourself. This is really the process of falling back in love with who you are. If you've never was in love with who you are, now is the time to learn how to be the person that you can love, so that you can share this love with the other people in your life, so you can bring them back to their sanities and you can help them out with their emotional state, because that's often what it takes, is for you to be able to work on yourself, and then you can help other people in your life understand what it is that they can do, what you need, without the expectations of outcomes. So I mean, if you feel like you have a couple friends that help you sometimes, but they don't help you as much as you want, you need to be grateful. You need to love these people and laugh with them for what time they're willing and able to put forward, because again, they might not have the mental, physical, or emotional strength to be able to do more than what they're doing. So this is why it's better to go from bitter to better, to have passion and laughter in your life instead of being lost in these emotions, instead of being trapped in the state of fire, because it starts running wild and it burns everything in your life. And then again, you just feel burnt. You feel burnt mentally, emotionally, physically, and you don't want to be burnt out. You don't want to feel like there's nothing left, that there's nothing going to get better. And this is how you do the process, is just start laughing, start finding things to be happy, find ways to bring joy into your life, whether it's tell yourself more jokes. Jokes are great. Listen to music that puts you in a better mood. Highly recommend not listening to music that's going to make you depressed and put you in anxious states. There's some stuff I used to listen to that it's a little too intense and it gets my heart rate up, and I try not to listen to a lot of that, because it starts getting if I start finding myself getting a little out of balance. So you have to understand how things in your life are affecting you, affecting your passion, to perform, your passion to be happy with what you can accomplish. you know Oftentimes we can't always do what we want, but nobody really can. Too many people, even without epilepsy, are running around trying to do more than they have the ability to do. We say that most people will underestimate what they can do in a year. I mean, overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 3 or 5. So we have these expectations that we think like we should be further along than we are. And if you start allowing this, it will take your passion away for life. It'll take your, performance. You stop laughing, and we really need you to start finding a way to just really, really enjoy who you are. and stop being bitter about this. Cool off that rage, the fire that burns inside, and just make sure it's a fire of passion that's tempered with goodwill as well as good actions. And so you start getting results that you want a whole lot better. All right. So in Chinese medicine, the next stage is actually wood. I mean, not wood, excuse me, earth. And I don't know if you can see my orange up here. All right. So that's a little hard to see. So you become bitter, when you become hopeless, when you lose your joy, oftentimes people start worrying about things. Everything turns to ash. So we've got worry warts. It's a term, people that worry too much, but I mean, it's a real problem. You just start worrying about a future, we go from, you have anxiety as well, you have worry, these things they're all like, what is going to happen in the future, not as opposed to what's going on right now. Earth element is oftentimes like what we have, what we feel like we have, our possessions come into this realm. Like some people feel better when they start nesting and they have all these items. Some people collect people, so they only feel good when there's other people around. Some people collect art, they love beautiful art. Some people collect music. I mean, it's really about, what you are starting to accumulate, what's growing, what is the outcome from all these actions that you've been taking. And you're gonna be really, really worried if you're not sure where you want to go, if you're not sure why you want to go, and seriously, if you're not sure how you're gonna get there, it starts to get very worrisome. And this starts affecting a lot of your digestion, and your energy starts getting really low. So that extra energy you felt when you're passionate or when you're bitter and resentful, like it burns you out and you just really become low energy. It's hard. You get lethargic. You don't really feel like you have your efforts coming along into something you want, and you need to be changing and stop worrying about what can go wrong and start thinking about what can go right. It's the best way to turn that around. So what can go wrong becomes what can go right. This is how you stop worrying about the future, because honestly, it's all about imagination. These things that we're worrying about that haven't happened yet, it's all in our head. We create these scenarios. We're all guilty of it. Everybody does this, whether they have epilepsy or not. They worry about things that might go wrong, and they're often based on previous experiences that we had that left them feeling fearful. They left them feeling angry. They left them feeling bitter, And so people start worrying, like, what if this never changes? What if this is the way that it's always going to be? What if? How many conversations have you had in your head? And then we actually go and talk to somebody, and the conversation, nothing goes wrong the way you thought it might. It actually goes very, very well. This is kind of these things that anxiety and worry are horrible things to get trapped up in. They're very, very easy to get trapped in. But this is why you start going with what can go right. When I was recently, I took a trip from here in California to Florida, and I took a plane and I flew by myself, and I spent a week in Florida, and I didn't have anybody with me. I didn't know anybody there. I just hoped for the best, because I know that, if I focused on all the things that could go wrong, this is the outcome I was going to build for myself, because it's kind of a self-fulfilling process. But if I thought about all the things that go right, if I knew that my actions were actually going to start growing into fruition, if I was going to start getting fruit of my labor, which is really what this is you start seeing your results, and you can start feeling a lot happier and a lot better, and stop worrying about when is this going to change, and you're going to start seeing how this is changing. And it's more about, what more can I do to empower myself? Keeping the worry away, keeping these thoughts and anxieties and stuff down, and so that you're not creating a future that you don't want. You're not letting your imagination go wild, and this actually helps you with your energy. You're putting all your energy into worrying or being anxious or mad or fearful. If you put all your energy into these things, it's going to leave you without the energy to do what you want, to do what you need. So this is why, again, it's important to start off with your focus, take actions, and then check out your results and how they make you start feeling. So if you're not getting the results you want, you try something new. If you're not getting the results you want, you try something new. How many times you keep doing this until you get the results that you want? But worrying about it doesn't help. You're just going to ruin your own personal health, your own mental health, your own emotional health. You're going to just be feeling unhappy, and that's not what we want. We don't want you feeling like that you are out of control, that there is some future that is totally out of your reach, because your mindset is everything. Your emotions are just, again, a stress marker, but you have to address these things. You can't let your stress, your worry, your hope for the future to be destroyed. You need to be able to take courageous action. You need to be able to have a little more faith in the process. You need to be able to be less rigid and more accepting of yourself, and say, hey, look, we all have to learn. And we learn oftentimes by making mistakes and finding out whether this is, going to work out better based on changing that. So stop worrying about your life, stop worrying about your future, and start building it so you can have these fruits from your labors. So when you're going, like I said, from the roots in the darkness, you got seed starts growing, your actions lead to more growing. Your tree gets taller and taller and taller and taller. We got all these, it starts off little, but it gets big. The more actions you take, your tree gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then after it's done growing and you're putting in the right way, you start getting little apples or, whatever it is that, berries. You start getting results. You start seeing the fruits. So this is how you stop worrying, is you start seeing like what your results are and how far along you're actually making it. So it's really good to stop being a worrywart. So focus on what can go right, not what can go wrong. So that leads us to our last phase in Chinese medicine, and that's actually metal. So in metal, a lot of this, it's about sadness, grief, I call this sad world. So in the sad world, full of grief, this is often, we associate this with breathing in the lungs, and for the most part, when you're sad, you're crying, when you feel grief, when you feel loss, this can be over the life that you used to have. It could be over, the life you want that you haven't had, and this can be over people that you've lost in your life. It's very easy to just get sad and upset and just cry and be disappointed in everything. So best thing you could do is really understand that, life comes with a loss, and this is how we grow. You can't really maintain everything. Nothing stays the same. Life is always changing, and it's going to continue to evolve, whether you are trying to stand still or whether you're trying to move forward. Life is going to happen with or without you. So it's better to be having life working for you than it is to feel like it's constantly working against you or on you. Because that's what sometimes, when life is working on you instead of for you, often it might feel like it's working against you because you feel like you're out of control. There's lots of things that are not in our control. You can't control how people are. You can't control your environment. very much. The people, like, seriously, if I have, if there's car sirens going by, you can't control that. The cops got to do the cops things. If the paramedics are going by, they got to do their things too. People come and go into your life. They have to do what they have to do, and you can only control yourself. And that's how you work through this, is you deal with your emotions. Don't hide them. Don't bury them. If you're sad, it's okay to acknowledge, like, hey, this makes me sad, but you don't want to live there. That's not the whole point of emotions. It's not to be like, okay, I'm just gonna be sad and upset for the next year, and nothing's ever the same I'm ever gonna want. And no, you got to get over that. You got to stop letting yourself wallow in your own misery. You need to take deep breaths, start becoming more present to where you're at, because only through the breath can you really experience the now. Otherwise you're trapped in the future, you're trapped in the past. Depression and fear often come from what already happened, things that happened to you and not for you. But oftentimes, nothing's really happening to you. You're just along for the ride, and it's up to you to decide what that means. So, and then the fear of the future, the anxiety, the worry, these problems, like, these are still not right now. So it just takes a matter of being in now, knowing that right now, you and I both have the option of making better decisions. We have the options of thinking better thoughts. We have the option to feel better about ourselves. So make sure that you are finding some movement, finding some people, finding the right things to help you feel good about yourself. And when you're doing things that are making you feel bad about yourself, stop hurting yourself. Stop doing things that make you feel like crap. Make sure that if there's things that you need to do and they make you feel like crap, make sure you're slowing down, get help when you can. Make sure that you're trying to do it one step at a time and not all at once, because this is where you start getting all emotionally out of control. You start dealing with the grief of loss, of not being able to do X, Y, or Z, whether it's, I used to be able to drive and I can't drive anymore. I used to be able to go to work. I can't go to work anymore. I used to be able to go party. Seriously, partying is, very socially acceptable, but it's totally not very good for most people's nervous systems. So it gets a little spicy in life. So you just got to make sure that you're taking a deep breath. You're relaxing. You can experience these emotions, but let them go. Start listening to something that is going to empower you, to make you feel better. Again, music is one of my favorite techniques to be able to turn your emotions around. So it's super, super easy to start, but it takes work and effort to continue the process. And you just got to go 1 degree every day. You just got to start the process, one step every day, one bite out of life, one thing at a time. Don't get overwhelmed by this big giant picture. And it really helps to start writing things down, start scheduling the things that you want to do, and make sure you take time for yourself so you can feel good about yourself. I still highly recommend doing meditation, learning the meditation, learning who you are and being able to accept who you are is really the art of meditation. People may not have taught you enough about it, and maybe I haven't taught you enough about how to do meditation, but it's really just about being mindful. It starts off by being mindful, being aware of you, being aware of your surroundings, being aware of how your surroundings affect you and how you affect your surroundings. Because, if you are in one of these emotional states, if you're sad, you're going through grief, there's going to be some people that want to comfort you, and there's going to be some other people that are like, get over it. And, honestly, it's up to you to decide when you want to get over it. And you can do it rather quickly, but it's okay. Feel your emotions, never bury them. Don't bury your emotions, because this just leads to more problems. More fear of like what can go wrong, more anger about the things that aren't working out, more anxiety about the future you want, and more worry about how you're going to do it. And, sadness of what life is not giving you, what it's taken away, what you want. And It's just about making better choices, better actions, and learning to be patient and kind to yourself as you grow. You can't sit there yelling at yourself, I hate you. You can't yell at yourself about you're stupid. We're not born knowing the answers to everything. If your doctors don't have all the answers for you, how can you expect to have all the answers for you too? If your friends and neighbors don't have all the answers, you can't have them either. And you can't expect them to have them either if you don't know. We don't come with this instruction book that says this is how everybody has to be treated, because for the most part, we all have different requirements. And I can tell you my journey. I can tell you about how I became me and how I'm able to feel this way. But for the most part, you have to decide what it is that makes you the best version of you, what it is that brings the better emotions out, as opposed to these negative emotions that we wallow in, that take our power away and prevent us from moving forward with our amazing life. Because you can do amazing things. You just have to start thinking better, taking actions to do the right things, and evaluating what it is that you do. And the best thing you can do is do less of what doesn't work. Right? So this is important. You need to evaluate your life. You need to be paying attention. You need to be writing down, whether it's through the Epsi app or you're doing a journal, you need to be writing down what you're doing and whether it's working for you. So when you're doing less of what doesn't work, you want to do more of what does work. So, all right, that's it. It sounds simple. It really is. If it's not working for you, stop. Don't keep hurting yourself. Don't keep doing things that are making you stay at a standstill or go backwards. But if you're finding things like going for a walk, eating healthier, saying better things to yourself so that you can start feeling better, telling yourself I love you is an amazing way to start the day. Just look in the mirror and say, I love you. You are strong. You are amazing. You have been through so much, and we're going to get through this together, because you have to be working with yourself or else you're working against yourself. And that's often the times that we feel crazy and out of control, because epilepsy comes up, taps you on the shoulder, and bam, tells you, night, night, baby. And, it's just not getting the results you want. Seriously, it's up to you to decide what works for you and what doesn't. And please start doing more of what works for you and less of what doesn't. So, all right, tomorrow we're going to cover a little bit more on some more emotional health, emotional well-being, how to actually take actions, how to think a little better with the emotions. So we ran through them briefly here from a traditional Oriental medicine standpoint. This is very Taoist philosophy. You can read about this in a book, the Huangdi Neijing, which is the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canons, discusses all about how Chinese medicine works. And from a mind, body, spirit perspective, it might be a little intense for a lot of people. So there's some other resources out there. And I was on the podcast last year. Last season, I was starting to cover the places that scare you by I don't remember her name right now. I'm sorry. Oh, right here, Pema Chodron. So this was a good place to start off. Places that scare you. It's all about being a compassionate warrior, loving yourself, learning how to love other people, even when they're letting you down and they're not living up to your expectations. And even loving the people that make your life hell. Because if you can still love them, you can get through anything. The cute little references they're talking about, this one guy was worried that he wasn't going to be challenged when he went to this location, because he was told these people were so awesome and wonderful that it was going to be really hard for him to be challenged enough to continue to grow. So he brought along this one guy that was like, it was his T-boy, and this guy was insulting and always did stuff to make him frustrated and angry. And it was his challenge to be able to overcome this and still have love for this gentleman and appreciate the challenges that were brought into his life. So again, it's really perspective on what things are going on, what you want out of it, how to love yourself, and how to be a compassionate warrior, a warrior for yourself. And we want to work on getting you from not just being a warrior, but a champion, to champion your own life, to champion your cause, your beliefs, and your emotions, so that you can be the best version of you, regardless of what is going on with the people in your life, whether or not you have epilepsy, whether or not the drugs work, whether or not you can work or drive. Like, these things do not determine your value. Your value is entirely determined by yourself, your self-confidence, your inner wisdom, your inner knowledge, your inner ability to love yourself. You become way more valuable. You become the hero in your own story, and then you can help other people become the heroes in their story or in their life. You can pass on your experiences. You can empower people with your message. You can do more of what you want. You can have the life that gives you meaning, and doesn't leave you stuck in fear, anger, bitterness, anxiety, worry, sadness, grief. These things, they're just stress markers. They're a part of life. And again, don't bury them, experience them. Say, okay, I feel this way. If you need to, write it down. Say, I feel this way today. And it really helps writing as opposed to typing, but just write things out and realize that, this too shall pass. Everything changes. So funny one I saw earlier today in social media, that it's a very common phrase I've seen, is this too shall pass. It may be like a kidney stone, but it will pass. So life isn't always comfortable. It doesn't always leave you feeling happy about leaving your past behind, or happy about a future that you're unsure of. But if you know what it is that you want, if you know why it is that you want it, if you know how you want to feel with your life, you can do a lot more to take action and move forward and become the hero that you need. You can become an epilepsy champion too. So looking forward to talking to you tomorrow for day 6, Epilepsy Hell to Epilepsy Well, 7-day challenge to take back your life. Thank you for being here, investing in yourself, and we'll talk to you real soon.